So today is the 24th of May, and yes, I am late. I was supposed to record on the 18th, but quite frankly, I have been so busy in real life, and I had a presentation, not just a poster presentation, I did that as well, but also an actual, like, presenting on stage presentation and being part of a panel at a conference. And so that kind of consumed my whole like mind. And that was on the 22nd. And then after doing that, I've just been really exhausted, but also trying to do everything that I'm supposed to be doing. And I've just been so busy. Because of that, even though I have it on my list of things to do, I have not started any more extra electrolysis besides the going every Tuesday and then every other Saturday. It is on the list, and I'm hoping to start that in the summer. But right now, school is just a lot, and I'm trying to also work, and I'm trying to also go to my appointments, and then I got published, and that's awesome. But I also submitted some more stuff for publishing, and I'm trying to do more of that. And then this conference went super well. I killed it. Yay. I did awesome, but I have been auto added to a list to reinvite next year because of it. And my faculty advisor, my professor, was like, yeah, here's some more uh, conferences I want you submitted to. And that's awesome. It's what I want to do with the rest of my life, but it is a lot. And then I have friends now, and I'm trying to clean things, and I'm trying to juggle so many things. It's just a lot of things. And I'm still the club president, and it's a lot. On the other hand, I have also been part of some protests, and I have been dealing with a very weird type of discrimination. Unfortunately, there's been quite a bit of discrimination I've had to deal with this month, and it's unfortunate. So, one thing is that I came out to my friends as having been born intersex, and thankfully, almost all of them were like completely and totally good about it. Like, they were accepting, and some of them even said that they couldn't imagine how hard that must have been. And I didn't even give them like all the details. Like, I didn't even explain so much of it. I just basically explained what intersex is and answered a few questions about my surgery that I'm trying to get. But in reality, it was mostly focused on this exists. This is true, and they were super good about it for the most part. I had one friend who I was super close with up to that point, um, who was like I thought like a brother to me, and he kind of left the room, and that's been a little hard because he's definitely been a little more standoffish ever since he found out. And I can tell he's trying to work through it, that he doesn't want to just like drop the friendship, but I can tell it's been a little hard for him. And I have been trying to not pull away and to make sure that I'm not creating more space. And that's also been a little difficult. We definitely have our moments of like awkwardness, but we're getting through it. And I appreciate that he hasn't dropped that. What's interesting to me though is a bunch of my friends who were super accepting about it are like strict Muslims. And in my experience, people who are very strongly religious have had a tendency to view me as like sin incarnate and an affront to all that is holy. And instead, they view it as an affront to all that is holy that I was ever like altered in the first place. That that would be standard procedure to just cut a child when they're born without knowing what they are yet, and that's like defying God. And so they viewed it from a very different perspective than what has been presented to me before in life, that I, just by existing, basically throwing in the face of God, what should be natural. And I really appreciate that they told me, and they've made really really clear, like all of them, how much they're glad that I'm their friend and that they want to spend time around me, and that they have just gone out of their way to make sure it's really clear that I am part of the friend group. So I really super appreciate that. It does suck about the one friend, but again, he is trying to work through it. What's really sucked is, unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, the first part. I'm pretty popular at my school, which is just like mind boggling to me. I'm Mr. Popular. I am trending at my college, and half the people at college seem to know who I am. I am being in like news articles, and again, it's just like this well of momentum. And part of it is from the support of the same professors who've been supportive the whole time. And then part of it is just more and more and more adding on. And it's kind of amazing. um, I'm sometimes speechless. But one of the new people who wanted to like meet me, it was just very, I don't think intentionally offensive, but it was very offensive. They met me for the very first time, and I knew a good friend of theirs, and they are a director of a foundation that I've worked with in the past, hosting an event for the college students with my club as president of the club, and they were a sponsor. So this person, when they met me, I thought, oh, they're going to want to talk about, the event they helped sponsor, because with through the foundation that they're the director of, and stuff like that. Instead, they got introduced to me, and we said hello, uh, or I said hello, and they said, but come here, like really close, like, and I kept getting closer, and it wasn't close enough, and they kept bending lower. So I bent lower until I was crouching on the ground with them bent over me. And it was just very strange just to even be in that position. And it was in front of my professor, who's my hero, and who, tells me to submit for publishing and to, you know, submit to conferences to speak, my hero. And so then I felt even more uncomfortable. But even besides that, it was really just uncomfortable to be crouched way down on the floor, and they are like over me, like bent over me like that. And they're looking me right in the eyes, and they whisper super quiet, "What are you?" And I'm like, and they're like, "I'm a they, them. What are you? You're trans, right?" And I was just like, oh, I'm he, him, but actually, I'm intersex. And they're like, oh, that still counts. And I was like, I know, um, as part of the LGBT plus community. And they're like, yeah, yeah. And then one of my friends starts to come over, and this person says, oh no, you need to go away, this is a private conversation, and like actually like puts their hand up and tries to keep my friend from coming over. So then she moves away and goes back to talking to my hero, and everyone else has left the room at this point except for the person towering over me, and then my hero who's talking to my friend, and me just crouched on the floor. And I'm like, what in the world is happening right now? And and then they turn back to me after shooing away my friend, and they whisper again, like it's some sort of deep, dark secret. I need your help. And I'm like, okay, what do you need help with? I need you to come to this LGBT plus meet thing I'm gonna have. And it's only for people in the LGBT plus community, no one else. And I'm like, what is happening? Are we starting some sort of secret society Illuminati thing? Like, what is happening? But I was like, okay, well, I'll help. And they're like, okay, good. And then they stood up, and I could stand up. It was so strange, and I tried to dismiss it, but it was like, why was the first thing that they ever said to me when meeting me for the first time, "What are you?" Like, very uncomfortable. But I said I would go, so turns out one of my other friends who's trans was going already. So we went to go to it, and on the same day there was Asian Pacific Islander Native American Alliance meeting thing that they were inviting students to go to. And I didn't realize it was at the exact same time. So some of my other friends, including the one who was uncomfortable about me being intersex, started to get ready to go. But me and my trans friend and their mentor, who was a bisexual, so was going to it as well, got started to go. And then her mentor was like, hey, oh, are you invited to come to this meeting? And my friend and another friend who was starting to come with them was like, yeah, of course. And they're like, you know, this is exclusive, right? And they're like, yeah. And so then she's like, you identify as queer? And he was like, why not? Okay, whatever. Like, obviously confused. And when we went downstairs, and he and my other friend who wasn't trans went to go to that, I was like, oh my gosh, that's why. And oh, and the thing is after he was super confused, he was like, you're going? And I was like, well, I was born intersex. And I could tell he did not like hearing that again. Hearing that for a second time was very uncomfortable for him. But he just sort of was very confused. Like, why would that matter? And I could see they were going to the meeting for the students to go in support of Asian Pacific Islander and Native American Alliance. And I was like, oh, that's why he's so confused. He doesn't even know that we're going to a different meeting. He thinks this is the meeting. And again, I didn't realize they were at the same time, and neither did my trans friend who was also friends with him, and neither did, her mentor. So we were all like, oh, this is why he was confused. This is why this conversation got weird. But, you know, I tried not to say anything, that the thing he had the biggest hurdle of was that I was allowed to go to the meeting because I was intersex. Like, he had been confused why I was invited to go to a meeting and he wasn't. But he thought it was for something else. So we get to this meeting, and it's all only LGBT plus community people from the school, faculty, teachers, staff, all that, and then also students. And the person running it is the person who I had been introduced to for the first time and had done the strange introduction with me. So when they saw that I was there, they were very happy. They were very pleased. And because I'm considered to be like some sort of student leader person at the school at this point. I'm just somehow Mr. Popular. I don't know. I had a student tell me today that they had respect for my leadership skills and that they saw what a good leader I was, and they wanted me to know that they recognized it. And I'm like, thank you. And they were like, you're always so in control. And I'm like, thank you, because I'm thinking in my head, am I? Like again, for some reason, I'm like really trending at my college. But anyway, so I'm at this LGBT plus meeting, and my friend who I brought with me, she's like, oh, I haven't met that person yet who runs this whole foundation. And I was like, oh, well, I can introduce you. And there were all these fun stickers and stuff on the tables and everything. And I had gone around with my friend and we'd picked out a bunch of the stickers, but none of the stickers were for intersex in specific. They were all like colors for like bisexual and pansexual and, you know, gay, and then like demisexual was even there, like all these different colors. And it wasn't just flags, like there'd be like a cute little ghost in trans colors, like it was fun. But there weren't any intersex in specific ones. And so when I went over there to introduce my friends, we were like, oh, hey, here's my friend. We've been going around getting stickers. So thank you for having all these stickers here. Because my friend who's trans, there were tons of stickers that were trans based and that she could gather up. And so she was like, oh, thank you for all my stickers. And, the person who runs the whole foundation was like, oh, of course. And then they asked me, hey, did you get any stickers? And I said, oh, well, there weren't really any for me. And they were like, what do you mean? And I was like, well, there's no intersex stickers. And they were like, what? This is supposed to be a pack of LGBT plus stickers. And there weren't any for intersex people. I was like, it's okay. We basically don't exist. We're like less than 2% of the human population. So then they made the joke, oh, well, then there should be at least 2 stickers. And I joked back, oh, technically 1.7 stickers. And then they were like, ha 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 ha, you intersex people, you're so weird getting cut when you're born. Or being altered when you're born, I think is the exact words that they used. And I was just like, yeah, that was me. And then they realized what they said and that everyone else at the table was dead silent. So then they, I guess, tried to overcompensate or something by being like, oh, when were you born? And I explained I was born in this year and it was standard procedure at the time to do that. They were like, oh, okay. And then they were like, well, you, are you, having surgeries and stuff? Are you basically like a eunuch? And I'm like, yes, I'm basically a eunuch. And I was like, yeah, I was castrated, and so then they wanted to know. I was like, oh, I'm preparing for my next surgery, and I'll be whole for the first time in my life. And then they wanted to know all about the electrolysis, and they wanted. I felt like a roadside freak show, except it's supposed to be the people who are like compassionate and supportive, but unfortunately, sometimes trans people either think of me as like appropriating their culture or else as just abnormal. And it again, I think this person means well, but they just say things in really uh, genuinely offensive ways, but they don't seem to realize how not nice that is. Like I don't know what would compel someone to go from joking about how many stickers there are to saying like, oh, you intersex people, you're so weird being altered at your, like, what would make someone leap to saying that? I don't know. And they're non-binary and they should be like an ally of some sort, and they want me to help them build up the LGBT plus community and be some sort of leader or whatever. And they've been the director of this foundation that I've worked with before in the past, but I did work with the school's specific navigator and not the person who directed the whole foundation. So, like, I don't know, but there's enough causes to not be like that it's just like confusing. Because when say someone really religious does something highly offensive, it's like, okay, they're transphobic or they're whatever they are. But this was just, you should know better. And I felt so uncomfortable, and no one else at the table was comfortable. Everyone was just sort of like, like, and as they continued to go further and further into details about like me pursuing surgery, and I just, it felt very uncomfortable. And of course, my friend, my trans friend, is standing right here, who's just met this person with me introducing them, and is listening to all of this and standing there awkwardly with their shoulders like this, not sure what to do. And for the and I just walked away and basically ignored it, because that's what I do. I usually try to treat it like it's not a big deal. It doesn't phase me. It's not something I want everyone to feel uncomfortable about, because I don't like for people to feel uncomfortable. And so she and I went back to thinking about the LGBT people we were around, and hanging out and trying to have some fun and eating cupcakes that had rainbows on them. Like, we basically ignored it. We've never spoken about it since it happened. Um, it didn't happen that long ago. It was like last Wednesday, but whatever. So then I told my one of my professors, who are my heroes, my one of my mentor professors, and when I did, I realized too late that I've told her before that I was born abnormal, but I didn't go into full detail. I only basically told her about my underdeveloped nervous system and not really anything else. And so, me being intersex wasn't part of the description, let alone other things going on. And so, when I was telling her, this was very awkward, like, and I'm being asked to be in a leadership position, what do you think? She couldn't even respond, because I mentioned it. I basically explained, oh, when I was crouched down like that, that was really weird. And they were like, what are you? And I, and when I said I was intersex, they said, oh, that still counts. And I watched as the woman I look up to most in the entire world, like, her eyes just went like that. And I realized, oh, I haven't actually said this to you before. And I basically just didn't talk about it any further with her. Like, I didn't make a big deal out of it, because that's what I do. And I was very worried, because she went from being excited about the conference I was about to speak at to ghosting me for like days. And I would try to make plans with her, and she would ghost. And I was like, on the one hand, she's a very busy person. She's very driven, a workaholic, and maybe it's just that. But on the other hand, after what happened with my one friend who was like a brother to me, it's like, is the same thing happening to her, where this is throwing her off and she's trying to like work through it or something. And I got scared that maybe she didn't want to like be my mentor anymore or something, and that she was really thrown. But thankfully, um we ran into each other doing something for club, and the first thing out of her mouth was, I know I've been ignoring you. And I said yes. And she she was like taking ownership of that, and she had just gotten out of a meeting and she was about to get in another meeting, and she pulled up my stuff for my presentation like right then, while we were doing the club things with another club member, to try to get it in. And so she basically went out of her way to like present, I'm really really busy. And that was just like such a massive relief, because a, her opinion means the world to me, and if she thinks my slides for my presentation are good, then I know they're good. If she thinks my slides for my presentation are bad, then they're bad. Like, she's not going to mince words. but she didn't eviscerate them, so that was good. She basically said, "You're using this word too many times," and that was it. Otherwise, she said they were good, and so then that made me really relieved. I could go to my presentation confident after that, but also I could go forward in life feeling more confident after that because it didn't really affect her other than being surprising in the moment when I said it. And like again, this is I told her after I did my presentation and she said I did great. I told her, "You're the Socrates to my Plato." And she was like, "Oh, stop." so so I think we're okay. We're good. You know, she was talking about future plans with me doing other conferences and stuff. So I don't think she wants to stop being my mentor or anything like that. So I was very relieved. I was very happy about that. Like even today, I saw my friend who's been like a brother to me, and we are getting better. We are starting to be less awkward, but there was a couple of moments where he was struggling, and he's trying so hard, and I appreciate that he's trying so hard. And I think it's helping that none of our other friends, all of us are like in this big friend group together, and none of our other friends are having a hard time with it. And I think that's helping him have less of a hard time with it. So that's helping. But, it is a little bit gradual for him. And I'm just so relieved that it wasn't like that with her, because her opinion means more to me than like anyone else's. Like all I want is to make her proud. You know, I'm doing all these things at school because I want her to be proud of me, and my other mentor professor too. But her in specific, because my other mentoring professor, she is so kind by nature. She is so thoughtful, like so thoughtful. Like she sent me a message of encouragement less than 10 minutes before my panel started. She specifically remembered what time it was going to start and sent me a message like right before I would go on stage, which was like so sweet. But, she I think would be proud of me just for trying, just for showing up. And my other mentoring professor is someone who expects a little more than that. She has a little higher standards. She's very type A, very business lady kind of person. But it means that when I do get reached those expectations, it raises my capacity as a person and it brings out the best in me. And her standards can sometimes be a little hard to meet, but the challenge grows me, and I do have other support for when I'm feeling like stressed, thankfully, and it works. For whatever reason, it works. And I'm just so grateful that that not changed. So grateful because it could have gone a lot worse. It could have gone like it went at the LGBT plus meeting thing with this director who I'm supposed to work with in the future. And both times that I've encountered them has been very uncomfortable for me. But I don't know that it's intentional. I genuinely think they're just super awkward. Like they don't know what to do. And they're a well meaning, left leaning person. It's not like they're hyper conservative and hateful. I've met plenty of people who are like that and who are sometimes outright cruel and sometimes dangerous, but for the most part, they're just sort of spiteful. They're just sort of ostracizing, belittling, dehumanizing. But um, I don't think they are specifically that. I think they are just not sure what to do with an intersex person. I don't know. I don't know. Anywho, it's been very strange amounts of discrimination. Um, I'm supposed to go to Pride with my trans friend and possibly some of my other friends as like allies and stuff, and that could be fun, but the majority of my friends are not actually in the LGBT plus community, because strangely sometimes I really do find it uncomfortable in the LGBT plus community. And as much as we're all supposed to be supportive of each other, I have been part of trans groups before where I could feel the strength of like people's jealousy that I was born with some male parts, even if I had to go through the transitioning experience because I was cut without a say in the matter when I was small. And they get that I have gender dysphoria like they do. It still is like this barrier. There's this sense of being shut out. And sometimes I feel pushed out by people because I'm straight. I am a male and I like women. And sometimes bisexuals and pansexuals and gays and lesbians are surprised that I like rainbows or surprised that I am so open about that I like rainbows. And I can tell sometimes it's just hard for them to accept me. And I don't expect anyone to be superhuman. It's not like I've had a lot of acceptance in my life. Um, it's just sort of a recurring issue. But for the first time in my entire life, I have an in person friend group and like an actual group of friends. And we like hang out and they seem to actually like spending time with me as a person. And I just, I've never had that in my entire life. I'm so grateful for it. I can't even begin to express how grateful I am for that. And that when I mentioned being intersex, that they almost all of them were accepting means so much to me. One of my really strict Muslim friends, he's from Somalia, and he flat out said that he can't imagine a worse life than being forced to be something that you're not. And that to him, that's like one of the worst sins that anyone could ever commit, is trying to force someone to be what they're not. Because that's basically throwing in the face of God how God made that person. And I just, I look at that and I look at how rigid the religious views have been that I grew up with, that were more Christian based, although to extremisms. But still, it's impressive to me. It's like really, really impressive to me because a lot of media presents Muslims as hating everyone in the LGBT plus community, but it's not really all Muslims. And quite frankly, I've felt more accepted by some Muslims than I have by some members of the LGBT plus community. So sometimes some things are just hard for people, and people like to make assumptions by grouping a whole bunch of people together, but we're all just people, and sometimes we're very different even when we're assumed to be the same. Everything else with my transition is pretty much probably, for the most part, same old, same old. Um, been taking my testosterone and I haven't noticed any real changes in my body that are like some sort of exceptional something. I have had a couple of people recently bring up that I'm stronger than I think I am. And even though I am overweight in preparation for the surgery and stuff, it's like under the fat, I apparently still have some muscle. I feel weak. I feel like I'm not as strong as I used to be for sure. But people definitely have brought up to me that I'm stronger than I feel like I am. So I don't know how much of that has to do with testosterone or not, but I've been on testosterone long enough. You would think that that would have been something that would have come up sooner if it was from testosterone. I don't know. Anywho, I I don't know. But I will say I have been having to try to remember my hair oil more because man, if I go even like a week without it, if I forget that long, uh the thinning in my hair starts to come back and I don't want my hair to thin out. So I have been having to pay attention to that for sure, but that's about it. And it's not like that's never come up before. So, yeah, my biggest priorities right now is to I just need to get through to the end of this quarter and I'll start summer quarter and I'll only have just the three classes and well probably and I can focus on getting more electrolysis so I can try to get to the surgery because man, my friends keep inviting me to play games with them like sports and stuff and I want to play sports with them, but I'm also trying not to exercise too much so I don't lose too much weight so that I don't mess up my surgery. So it's I just need the surgery to happen. I would have so much more time in my life if I didn't have to go to all these appointments. I would have so much relief from having even the shaft, even if it's not, shaped yet. Just, I would have so much relief from that. I can't even begin to express how much relief that would be. I would finally know my schedule for the other surgeries because they're an exact time and this is the only one that's just like up in the air. So I just need to like see if I can pump out a bunch of electrolysis this summer. But right now I got to survive all these projects and essays and stuff that I have to do for school because it's a lot. And now that this conference is done, I'm a little behind and I need to catch up. So my focus isn't on trying to get to the surgery as strongly as it would be if I wasn't so distracted by how much I need to do for school. But other than that, I am handling discrimination the same way I always do. And I am so grateful to my friends and to my mentor who were cool about the way that I was born because there's just so many people who aren't. Somehow my body is just a religious intolerance for them. Like just the fact that I exist. And for my friend who is working through his feelings about it, I'm so grateful that he is. Because like I said, he's been like a brother to me. And for the people who even amongst the LGBT plus community are so oblivious to how much harm they do, I I just handle them the same way every time. I just treat it like it's not a big deal and hope that that creates space and opportunity for them to not get defensive, not feel aggressive, and instead maybe reconsider the way that they handled that.